Good morning. The October 28, 2021 Veterans Land Board meeting will come to order. Pursuant to Section 31.015 of the Texas Natural Resources Code, I'm chairing this meeting in the Commissioner's absence as Chief Clerk of the Land Office, as the Commissioner is away on state business. Should the Commissioner return prior to the conclusion of this meeting, I will relinquish the chair to him. The October 28, 2021 meeting of the Veterans Land Board is being held in person at 1700 North Congress Avenue, Stephen F. Austin Building, and by video conference call as authorized under Texas Government Code Section 551.125. Access to the meeting by members of the public was published in advance in the Texas Register in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Any member of the public who wishes to address the Veterans Land Board should indicate so at the start of the meeting. And we will get started. And let me say, it is nice. I appreciate the ability to do this hybrid, but it's nice to have both of you gentlemen live and in person. So thank you for coming in.
Especially good to be here live.
Absolutely. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the August 5th, 2021 Veterans Land Board meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
I'll second.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to approve the minutes. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the August 13, 2021 land.
Move approval.
And I'll second.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to approve the minutes. Next item on the agenda is consideration and approval of the new board secretary.
Mr. Chairman and members, Jeff Gordon, GLO General Counsel. As many of you know, Stephanie Crenshaw retired September 30th after a long and distinguished career, and she served previously as both the board secretary for the Veterans Land Board as well as the School Land Board. I am asking the board today to approve a new board secretary, Linda Quintanilla, down at the end of the table. Linda has been with the GLO for over 3 years as a legal assistant in my office of General Counsel. Before that, she was in private practice as a legal assistant and with the Attorney General's office. She trained under Stephanie before Stephanie left, and I have great confidence that she'll make an excellent board secretary, and I would ask the board to approve her official appointment as board secretary.
Mr. Gordon, my comment is I've only met her just a few minutes ago and already I'm floored and impressed. I think she's astounding. So a good choice.
Yeah, I'm as well looking forward to working with Linda, but also just want to say thank you to Stephanie for all of her years of service. She's been an invaluable resource for us as board members and being prepared and understanding the process. So I want to thank her.
Well, as she's retired, I doubt she's watching this right now, but I will, when I speak to her, I will certainly pass on those kind words.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'd be delighted to so move.
And I'll second.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is number 4, the quarterly investment report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Good to see you all again, and let me add my congratulations and welcome to Linda also. I have had the privilege of working with her for the past few weeks, and I think she's going to be excellent in that role. So welcome aboard, Linda. Look forward to working with you. As you know, members, Mr. Chairman, this is a non-voting item that we put on the agenda every time there's a quarterly investment report completed. This is for the period ended June 30 of 2021. As far as the economy is concerned and market conditions, U.S. GDP in the second quarter increased at an annual rate of 6.7%. That was following an increase in the first quarter of 6.3%. That increase reflected continued economic recovery, reopening of business establishments, and continued government response related to the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition, there were government assistance payments in the form of loans to businesses and grants to state and local governments, which also increased. And there were also direct economic impact payments that decreased during the period. The U.S. unemployment rate during the period ended the quarter at 5.9%. That was down slightly from 6% even at the end of the first quarter, again reflecting continuing efforts to mitigate the economic impact of the pandemic. As far as the Fed is concerned, as you know, in March of 2020, they lowered their target Fed funds range from 1.5% to 1.75%, all the way down to 0% to 0.25%. And they reiterated at their June 2021 meeting that they're going to maintain that target range until labor market conditions have reached levels consistent with their assessment of maximum employment and inflation has risen to 2% and is on track to moderately exceed 2% for some time. In addition, they also reaffirmed the continuation of the balance sheet normalization program that they started back in October of 2017. And they also stated they would continue monitoring the implications of incoming information for the economic outlook, including public health information, inflation pressures, and international developments, and would use the tools available to it as appropriate to support the economy. In addition, they indicated they would be prepared to adjust the stance of monetary policy as appropriate if risks emerge that could impede the attainment of their goals. As far as our portfolio is concerned, our strategy focuses primarily on providing liquidity and cash flow necessary to meet continued loan purchase and debt service requirements, and only secondarily focuses on total return, and while preserving principal with high-quality investment instruments. Our portfolio is composed mostly of high-quality commercial paper in short to medium-term treasury, agency, corporate, and taxable municipal bonds. The duration during the period decreased slightly from 2.86 to 2.7 years, and our target average duration for the year is about 3 years, maybe 3 to 3.5 years. I would point out to you in the asset allocation chart on page 2, we still are maintaining a pretty high allocation to cash and short-term investments as reflected in the two categories, cash at State Treasury and cash at State Street. And that is because interest rates remain exceedingly low. Yields are really not attractive at all. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to get too far out on the yield curve with longer dated investments at this point. Obviously, you follow the news and you know that the Fed is indicating that they're about to start making some changes and maybe start rolling back some of the easing that they've put into effect over the past few years. When that happens, whenever it is, maybe before the end of this year, I think you're going to see some immediate reactions in credit markets and see interest rates, particularly longer rates, start to increase. So we think it makes a lot of sense to stay short, and I don't think we're giving up too much by doing that at this point. Turning to page 3 and looking at the numbers themselves, the table 2 in the middle of the page there, you can see the total return for the quarter for the portfolio was 0.25%. The benchmark was actually down 2 basis points, so considerably outperformed the benchmark. The 1-year total return on portfolio is 0.36%, and the actual benchmark was only up 0.09%. The yield on our portfolio was 0.77% at the end of the quarter versus 0.19% on the benchmark. So even though yields are exceedingly low, we're still outperforming the benchmark pretty well. And since inception of the portfolio, we're outperforming the benchmark by about 100 basis points, 3.30% versus 2.30%. That does conclude my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, this is a non-voting item. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions, comments from the board?
Rusty, just one question. I know you're aware with some of the recent inflation numbers that are coming in, do you see any opportunities or shifts in allocation that might be opportunities for us with, potential for increased inflation out there in the market?
Well, certainly there should be, but the issue is that the Fed is keeping so much capital invested in the market with the programs that they're running that interest rates are not moving up in tandem with those perceived increases and inflation. And in fact, there's a little disagreement. If you follow the press, the Fed has started using the word transitory when it talks about the current inflation. They seem to be of the opinion that it is not going to last. But there is some disagreement about that. And I think to answer your question, that's why we have so much cash and short-term investments built up, is to take advantage of those opportunities when they do occur. We think they will occur. I just don't know exactly when. I personally would like to think that the level of inflation we're seeing now, which is pretty elevated, it's just under 5% now. I'd like to think that it's transitory, it's temporary, but I don't have a crystal ball. All I know is that if it does persist, the markets are going to react at some point, and there will be opportunities, particularly in the corporate market. You'll see spreads increase pretty dramatically, and that's one market that we would like to invest more money in. But the risk spreads are so narrow now; they're just out of whack with the risk that's built into that market. So we don't think it makes a lot of sense to be paying high premiums on these bonds when that sort of inflation is out there and could persist for some time. So the short answer is we think there will be opportunities, and we think we're positioned to take advantage of them when they occur.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
No, thank you, Rusty.
Thank you, Rusty. That being a non-voting item, we'll now move to item number 5, consideration possible action on construction at the Abilene Cemetery.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Eric Brown, Deputy Director of Texas State Veteran Cemeteries. Agenda item number 5 is consideration and possible action on major construction contract for the crypt expansion at the Texas State Veteran Cemetery at Abilene. On January 23, 2020, the Board of Directors of the Veterans Land Board approved the VLB policy on review and approval of major contracts, which generally requires any contract for goods and services between the board and a vendor valued at $1 million or more to be approved by the board. The board approved the policy to address a recommendation imposed upon it by the Sunset Commission. Staff recommends the board approve executing a major construction contract with Emerson Construction Company to install additional double-depth crypts totaling 1,000 to expand the cemetery's ability to serve veterans and their families, widening of the entrance road, grading and drainage improvements, landscaping, irrigation, supporting infrastructure, and other components of the cemetery that are vital to our operations. The project's evaluation committee determined that awarding this contract to Emerson provides the best value to the GLO and the board. The value of the contract is $2.53 million and expected to take 270 calendar days for substantial completion from time of notice to proceed issued by the VA, then it's handed off to our construction services folks. The GLO applied for and was awarded VA grant funding for the project in the amount of $3,092,700. This amount covers the amount to be paid to Emerson and also includes administrative, architectural, engineering, project inspection, and contingency fees. The VA will fund 100% of the project's costs. That concludes my portion of the briefing, subject to your questions.
Questions?
Mr. Chair, I think it's admirable, Eric, that you managed to get the VA to pay for 100% of it. So anytime we can improve our facilities where it's fully paid for by the VA, I think it's a wonderful idea. I move approval.
Yeah, I think it's great too. I guess the one question I would have is with our other cemeteries, do we see opportunities or needs, to expand or make any improvements there as well, or not at this time?
Yes, sir. In fact, we have a current project that's just wrapping up in Abilene. That was awarded for $1.2 million from the VA. That project is expected to be completed. It was completed in August, but we're just waiting on substantial documents to be submitted to VA so they can accept the project. We also have a project in Mission that is expected to be completed in December. There were a few delays based on materials, just as the rest of the world is struggling with some of these quirks. And so that project is expected to be completed December. And for Abilene, obviously, with a $3.09 million contract, we can further our opportunity to serve our veterans and their families. But it's important also to mention, sir, that currently on the VA's priority list, we have 13 active grant applications. So we are leaning forward in terms of trying to serve our veterans and their families.
It's great to hear.
And I would like to echo your comments and thank Eric and his staff for constantly pursuing these VA grants, because I know these cemeteries are expensive to run, and any help we can get from the feds is greatly appreciated. So glad to see all these being pursued. No further questions. I will take a motion.
So move. Move
Second.
approval.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to approve item number 5. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 6.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, my name is Heather De La Garza, Special Counsel for Veterans Affairs. Good to see everybody in person this morning. The item number 6 is a non-action item, and it's mostly to provide you all with an update on various emergency contracts that the agency has entered into over the past 15 months to address the COVID-19 pandemic. Back in April, we advised you that the agency had entered into 4 COVID-19 reimbursement agreements. Your board memo that you've been presented in your packets outlined some updates to those agreements. We are passing through additional funding we have received to help the operators get reimbursed for testing and incremental costs they're incurring to address the COVID-19 pandemic in the various vet homes. We've also, throughout, when the pandemic began, we also entered into a consulting services contract with a pandemic advisor. The agency felt that we needed to have expertise immediately to help advise the agency on infection control and various ways to secure our vet homes, our cemeteries, and the agency offices as a whole. So we entered into a consulting services agreement with Marcelina Ballard, who came very highly recommended from Texas A&M University. Over the past 15 months, she's provided very valuable guidance and expertise and information to the agency to address various issues we've encountered throughout the pandemic. So her contract was initially valued at around $52,000, and we've been extending it. And as a result of the Delta variant, we feel the need to continue her services. So her contract is expected to be extended for an additional 6 months for a total contract value of $208,000. And then finally, back in June, we received kind of a lump sum payment from the Department of Veterans Affairs through a law that was passed by the president back in December. And that money was sent to the VLB to basically prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. And so what we did was we entered into emergency funding contracts with each of the 4 operator entities, and they were directed to use that for staffing, because throughout the country, you may have been aware from various news reports that there is a staffing shortage throughout the long-term nursing care industry. So they are to use the funds to recruit, hire, train, and retain nurses, certified nursing assistants, social workers, and support staff. And if they do expend all the money, if they expend money and have money left over, they can use it for coronavirus expenses. So that's just a summary. It's just a notification. I'm happy to answer any questions. And John Berkeley, the Deputy Director, is also here if you have any questions.
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Your report is really complete, and I appreciate that. I'm curious, and this may be outside your field of doing this, but I'm just wondering how our results are going now with the veteran inpatients at our homes. Are we able to keep COVID at bay? We had the earlier problems. Is that
I
pretty
would
well
think
taken
so,
care of?
sir. I believe right now we don't have any COVID cases in the homes of the residents, and I think there might, I don't remember what the port is today. 0 residents have COVID, and that's been going on, and so we're very excited about that. And so yes, I think we're doing a good job of keeping it at bay.
I'm excited too. Thank you.
Thanks.
I would say regarding this report, thank you, Heather, and to financial management as well, because I know that we were fortunate to receive different funding sources, but so many of those PRF, CRF had different restrictions, regulations, and kind of timelines on this as well. So we've been trying to manage each of these dollars to kind of contribute where they can in the homes. So thank you for preparing this. Any other questions, comments? That is a non-action item, so next item on the agenda is number 7.
Yes, Heather De La Garza again for the record, Special Counsel, Veterans Affairs. This item, agenda item number 7, consideration and possible action on a contract for pharmacy services for the Texas State Veterans Home Program, is a voting item. In the past few months, the Texas State Veterans Home Program conducted a procurement. The VA requires, as a condition to receive the per diem at our veterans' homes, they require us to provide pharmacy services to our residents. And so we sent out a procurement RFP, and this morning the staff is recommending that the board approve executing a pharmacy services contract with Omnicare Pharmacy of Texas 1 LP to provide these pharmacy services. They will provide generic and brand name pharmaceuticals as ordered by the physicians to the board and to the Texas State Veterans Home owned by the board, and for the new Texas State Veterans Home that is scheduled to open, or if it opens within the term of this contract. The project's evaluation committee determined that awarding this contract to Omnicare provided the best value to the GLO and the board. As you can see from your board memo, if the board approves today, it will be effective November 1st, 2021, and will terminate 3 years later, August 31st, 2024. You will have the option to renew for an additional 3 years at that time should services prove satisfactory. That will be brought before the board at that time. The not to exceed amount for this contract will be $13.5 million. And so if we need to exceed that amount at any time, that will also have to come before the board, before the contract is terminated. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Heather, I have a question for you. Since the last time we met in person, I actually signed up for the VA and used it for the first time, and I was impressed with their services. And I know that from what they told me, their pharmaceuticals are free. Now, all the residents who are in our homes are probably eligible for VA, or at least a lot of them are eligible for VA benefits. So when we're looking at the $13.5 million, is that for the operational costs, or does that include the actual pharmaceuticals? And
That's
if
the
so-
actual, I believe that's encompassed by the actual pharmaceuticals and the fee schedule that's provided in your memo. I believe so, and I don't know if there's any additional costs that are passed through. John Berkeley might be able to speak better on that.
Sure, thank you. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, members, John Berkeley, Deputy Director for the Texas State Veteran Home. We pay for the service-connected disabled. The VA per diem is an enhanced per diem, and that covers all medication at our cost. And so that is what primarily, and also our aid and attendance, and of course, first doses for antibiotics. And that's where our costs. And of course, our service-connected have a much higher utilization of medications than the average resident as well.
Sure. So it's by contract, the responsibilities are divided up. So the VA steps aside from their providing the pharmaceuticals and just provides it through the contract for what we're doing.
Correct.
That's what I was curious about. And what a good answer. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather, I just wanted to ask, how does this compare to the previous contract? Because Omnicare previously was our
Right.
contracted pharmacy.
The pricing is about the same. It's a little bit higher because we're accounting for the new vet home opening. So, there is a slight increase, but the pricing is about the same. The contract terms are pretty much the same. It's been fully negotiated. They didn't have any substantial changes, and so as soon as you all give your approval today, we will go ahead and execute this shortly thereafter.
Okay. And were there other respondents in the?
Yes, there were several respondents, and because the contract hasn't been executed, that's confidential at this time, but yes, we had several respondents, and the project evaluation committee felt that Omnicare provided the best value, and they got the high score.
Okay. Thank you, Heather.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
No.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
Move, we approve.
Second the motion.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to approve item number 7. Items number 8 through 10 will be in executive session. The Veterans Land Board will enter into closed session pursuant to Chapter 551, Subchapter D, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, for consultation with attorneys regarding matters involving attorney-client privilege information and legal issues associated with items numbers 8 through 10. Following the closed session, the board will reconvene in open session to complete the docket. Open session of the October 28, 2021 meeting of the Veterans Land Board meeting will resume with item number 8.
Jeff Gordon, GLO General Counsel. Based on the discussion in executive session, staff recommends that the board ratify the termination of GLO contract number 19-124-000-B460 with Touchstone Veterans Management. As I said, in light of the discussion we had with council in executive session.
I move approval.
I second.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to approve item number 8. Next item on the agenda is number 9.
Again, Jeff Gordon, GLO General Counsel. Mr. Chairman and members, this is now a non-action item. The staff is canceling this procurement for these services and will be re-procuring the services. Therefore, no action is requested of the board at this time.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions, comments from the board on that one?
No questions. Thank you.
Being a non-action item, the final item on the agenda is number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Heather Della Garza, Special Counsel, Veterans Affairs. Item number 10 is an action item. Over the past few months, staff conducted a procurement for the management and operation of the Ussery Rowan Texas State Veterans Home in Amarillo, Texas. Staff is recommending that the board approve execution of a contract with the highest scoring respondent as determined by the evaluation committee, subject to successful negotiations with the respondent of acceptable terms and conditions. Staff is available to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
No questions. I move approval.
I'll second.
Motion is made, seconded, and carries unanimously to approve item number 10. There being no further business before the Veterans Land Board, the meeting is adjourned.